Hi, I'm licensed psychologist Dr. Clif P Lewis, and today we answer the question, how many PhDs does it take to book a meeting? Roll intro.
We don't want to get sued, so we're going to be like super vague. First mistake.
How are you a manager and unable to deal with conflict?
If nothing else, I'm balanced.
Let's try this one more time. Welcome to Management Tool, the show about psychology, employment, and management, where my esteemed guests and I talk about what you're doing is wrong. On today's show, we have... I actually don't have your bio. I quickly need to pull up your bio. We have Dr. Eran Padumadasa. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's Padumadasa.
Padumadasa. Hello, Eran.
Hey.
Eran is feeling really self-conscious because you can hear the gym underneath his office. Even though, wait, let me quickly get this guest bio.
So you can hear everything.
Well, no, I'm making it sound worse than it really is. Eran is senior lecturer from the School of Electronic Engineering and Computer Science at Queen Mary University of London. With over 13 years of academic experience in higher education, his field of expertise ranges from computer science to law. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science, from which he has moved on to management and economics and completed a PhD in commercial law. His area of expertise is in cyberspace law and is currently working on artificial intelligence and machine learning projects. His research interest ranges from AI tech law, decision sciences, business process innovation. Currently, he serves as the Deputy Dean of Education, even though you wouldn't say that from hearing the noise underneath his office, that oversees the education provision of degree apprenticeships, short courses, continuing professional development, and micro-credentials.
Thank you, Clifford. And
that was a very,
it's truly
very
an honor
chaotic
to be part of this podcast.
For anyone listening, I did not pay him or force him to say that. Thanks, Eran. We are going to be talking based on your background and my background. We are going to be talking about blockchain and HR. So,
do you want to talk about how blockchain fits in HR or how HR fits in blockchain?
We can talk about either permutation you want to. I don't have a specific preference, but before we get into that...
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But before we get into that, we're going to do a little segment called The Sharpest Tool in the Shed, where we talk about where someone is actually doing something right. Today's Sharpest Tool in the Shed is a founder and CEO of Hopin, I think it's Hopin, a virtual event startup, which was founded very recently. But I've got an article here in front of me. It's 2 years old. It's 2-year-old's event startup Hopin boomed during the pandemic and is now worth close to $8 billion. That's billion with a B, people. So so their CEO is who is the sharpest tool in the shed is Johnny Bufarhat. I think I'm butchering your surname, Johnny. I am really sorry about that. Johnny is the sharpest tool in the shed, not because his startup is doing really well and because it boomed and is worth 8 big ones. He's the sharpest tool in the shed because he has been recorded to saying, and I quote this article, Bufarhat 27, talk about feeling like a worthless piece of crap when this 27-year-old is worth billions. Well, his company, not him. But anyway, Bufarhat 27 says a lot of his firm's success boils down to luck. I feel lucky, he told CNBC in an interview. You work really hard and you make some critical decisions to get your business to where it is. but there's also a really big part of luck that takes you there. So the reason that Johnny is the sharpest tool in the shed is because he's not falling victim to this idea of heroic leadership and romanticized leadership that we often see, and where a company success is, credited to one specific leader or a CEO or a founder. He's acknowledging publicly that, yeah, okay, cool. Maybe I had a good idea and my people work really hard, but there's, a lot of contextual factors that play into success. And so thank you for being the sharpest tool in the shed this week, Johnny. Not that he is ever going to watch this podcast, but that was the sharpest tool in the shed. Cool. So without further ado, let's get into the roasting. So first thing that I want to mention, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about blockchain and HR. So HR is currently, as it stands, quite centralized. A lot of its central processes is quite authoritarian, an outdated way of thinking in that you kind of have to hold everything like this because there's compliance issues, labor law issues, employment relation issues. And so my basic knowledge, so just in that, general HR practices and when I say HR practices, I'm not talking about the development stuff. I'm not talking about organizational development. I'm not talking about training, coaching, leadership, diversity. Maybe diversity in terms of compliance and reporting. But with HR practices, in today's episode, I'm specifically referring to things like payroll, other kinds of compliance reporting, that you get why it is that way and why it is centralized and why it is maybe still a bit archaic. Because if it's not, people's information might get leaked, or people might not get paid at the right time. Excuse me. So there is a reason for that. But from my basic knowledge of blockchain, and from the little bit of reading, emphasis on the little, I've not prepared for this extensively. That's why I have Eran on the call so that he can do the actual telling of what the things are. From what I understand from blockchain is blockchain offers an opportunity to kind of move away from that mindset, to decentralize less like this. But before we get into that, can you maybe explain to the listeners, not to me because I know exactly what blockchain is. Can you please explain, in a nutshell, what is blockchain?
So I think the basic way of explaining a blockchain is just another repository of data. It might be well known in the field of Bitcoin, but when you kind of break it down into in a granular way, and trying to find applications of blockchain into different contexts, or what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand how to kind of store data in a more effective way that can provide that security, ensure that the data integrity is maintained, and avoid anyone tampering with that data. So think of blockchain as a collection of queues, basically data repositories that gets connected so that the same copy of information is maintained by different individuals, and the architecture of this chain of data is maintained in such a way that it ensures those attributes that I mentioned: security, integrity, even privacy, and ensures that no data tampering is done. And the beauty of blockchains is that it serves this change in the ecosystem of how businesses operate. The example that you just gave, HR as a practice has been functioning as a more centralized way. But now when you look at it, the ecosystem of this practice is changing. there are different entities that gets involved in this kind of efforts of recruitment, or in the practice of HR, and this change in the ecosystem makes it more of a suitable kind of a context for a blockchain to be introduced, because it offers the ability for people to maintain rich data, which is transparent to anyone who is part of that blockchain. And I think that's the beauty of things.
So if I'm understanding, sorry, I think there's a delay on the call. If I'm understanding correctly, oh my God, I hope I'm recording both of us. Yes, I am. Oh, I just had a mini heart attack. I thought I wasn't recording both of us. So if I'm understanding correctly, you can still have the maintenance of security, integrity, data security, and all of these things without a person or an organization being responsible for that.
Yeah, I think it fosters an environment of interoperability. If you look at how databases were kind of conceptualized and implemented, they were more restricted to organizations' own protocols and regulations. But now with blockchains, you're making data kind of visible to parties outside the organizations, making that data available, and that facilitating that data interoperability. So it's contributing to the whole data economy of sharing information, and collectively, I think this whole aspect of co-creating of a better ecosystem that benefits everyone, not just one party, is what a blockchain does. And I think it has some good examples.
Yeah, and gives transparency to processes without compromising privacy. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Exactly.
So I found this article
exactly.
Sorry, you were saying? Sorry, I think there's a stupid delay on the call.
There was a delay, yeah. No, I mean, I just said exactly.
Okay, so I found this article when I was just doing, I don't want to say preparation because it was very brief. And it says, why should HR be interested in blockchain? And expert explains the benefits. So blockchain started out, I'm just going to quickly scan through this. Blockchain started out as a method of recording financial assets in a trusted environment where transactions are written into a ledger within a database technology that prevented anyone from making changes to the older data. So the computer is maintaining data, and that cannot be edited by anyone, not even the creator of the code, supposedly. It involves sharing transactions.
That's exactly what Bitcoin was. That's exactly what Bitcoin was about. I mean, it creates an open ledger, an open distributed ledger that anyone can see. So, and everyone sees all the transactions. So there's full transparency in how the transactions take place, and it ensures that integrity of the transaction, so that no one can tamper with the data, because of the unique structure of these kind of blocks or the cubes of data, and the architecture of those cubes, because they use something called hashing to ensure that each block is uniquely identified. So in case if someone tampered with the data, it's going to, all the nodes would be able to know that this data has been tampered.
With.
Apologies for the music. I did not ask them to do this.
Don't lie.
And cue music.
The party is going on in your filing cabinet. Don't even lie. Just keep the party to a certain level while I'm recording. Okay, so yes, so essentially the
Who's the one? Who's the one? What's the guy who does the exercise videos?
There's lots of them.
You know, the famous guy with the curly hair, skimpy
Oh,
shorts.
Let us be your personal trainers today. Let this workout really boost your spirit.
it was fine. It was
It's not
fine.
me.
It was fine earlier, and all of a sudden, the party got lit. So, in this article that I found, it says, so what is the reason that HR should be interested in blockchain? And they say, to understand the real enterprise value of blockchain, it needs to be put in a historical perspective, and the technology development needs to be compared alongside the business problem it's intended to solve. That's not process improvement, it's software architecture. And the real reason HR is interested in blockchain is its design. Early blockchain ventures, as we've discussed with Bitcoin, etc., claimed a solution to the historical problem and traced the roots of financial transaction back to the Middle Ages, when merchants conducted business transactions using a ledger, as you've mentioned. Similarly, HR can trace record keeping back to the Industrial Revolution. Like we said, attendance, payments, stuff like that, employee records. So at the time, records were kept about 3 facets of human resources, or personnel as that was referred to at the time. So it's the person, so it's their employee record cards. 2, the organization, so filing cabinets, head counts, and as they say here, is the number of cards in each tray. And then the third thing is employment cycle management, so personnel files to record details about recruitment, performance, remuneration, training. So these are things that I haven't even mentioned yet. Each facet has a different business owner, and they're still bumming and tumming.
That's the London Tube.
Was that the Eran? Where do they have you in an office? This is not okay.
on top of a tube line. That's why this building shakes.
Sandwich between the
Surely
gym.
you've had the London Tube.
But Eran, why do you have such a shit office? Is it because you're brown? Eran,
No comments.
is Queen Mary being racist? This bit's staying in. The other parts I'm cutting, but this bit's staying in. So each facet has a different business owner. So we see that now already. We've got different departments. Each department head is responsible for maintaining the data, and there's so many different hands touching. I was doing a project now recently for a client, because I'm a consulting psychologist, so I have various different clients, and they were doing a survey on job satisfaction or something HR related, obviously. And one of the things that came out that everyone was very concerned, some people were outright upset about the performance evaluation process. They felt that the way their performance was managed, recorded, and what was done with that recorded information wasn't transparent, it wasn't clear, it wasn't fully understood. And I think if you're having something performance management is hardly ever very 100% transparent. Remuneration isn't even always. So I'm thinking, if you have something, instead of a system that can be edited at any point by many different people, and that information can be used in a number of different ways, that's not necessarily the way it was intended to be used. If you have something like blockchain technology instead, where everyone that's part of, as you said, the ecosystem makes a collective decision that we are going to collect certain data. It's going to be collected in this way, recorded in this way, and it's going to be used in this way. We write the code, we agree on it, we set the code free, and nobody can change that. Is that like a fair assessment of how it would work?
That is a fair assessment of how it could work.
Girl, the shade of it all.
This, what you just explained is obviously one use case, but there are plenty of other use cases where it could kind of fit into the whole processes, different processes that take place within HR. I mean, one this example that you gave was an appraisal kind of a process. But what if it's not a full-time employee that works only in that organization? What if it's someone who works in multiple organizations? What if it's a contractor who works in multiple places? Where if you are, say for example, I work with an organization who is a consultancy firm. They work with clients. The consultant works in a client-facing organization, and they are with the clients for the number of the duration of the project. So they might end up working there for 3 years or 4 years, and your appraisee is not from within your organization, external to your organization. And this takes us to an interesting point. What is the future of work? Is the future of work going to be someone who is tied to an organization with a contract with those, kind of a golden handcuff? I think future of work is
golden handcuffs.
Employees are going to have that. Yeah, you've not heard the term golden handcuffs.
I've heard of a golden handshake.
A golden handcuff is where you are constrained into an organization to be with them due to a certain kind of a constraint. So, for example, if they're investing in your PhD and you have no option but to stay with your organization,
it's like a gilded
the duration of the PhD. That's a goal.
It's like a gilded cage. Interesting. But what is your concern here? So say, for instance, you do a performance appraisal. Let's use this one example, and you have the information on a certain person, but that person isn't necessarily stuck to or associated with one organization. It might be a consultant or whatever the case might be. What's your concern here? That the information is privileged and should not be visible?
I think no, I'm not saying information should not be visible. Information should be visible. I think the beauty of blockchain is that the employee in this particular example has the right to their information. So once they're part of this blockchain, they're essentially what they're doing is they're giving consent. Hello, T-shirt reference. To basically use their personal information and manipulate that personal information. So I think what it basically does is it gives a certain level of privacy to the employee, because the whole notion of privacy is all about having the control over your personal information, you deciding who you want that personal information to be used by, and when it should be kind of shared with, and who it should be shared with, and for how many, what purpose that it should be shared with. So you have more control over that. So
this is exactly what this article is saying. So each facet, and so with the facet, it means the performance, remuneration, training, recruitment. Each facet has a different business owner and different technology needs. So, the one has a training management system, the other one needs like a payroll system. And today's HR technology problem dates back to the 80s, where everything was bundled into a monolithic system and products ignored individual needs. Yeah. So with blockchain and HR, one of the software architecture components that fits the problem is how it works is as follows. Like you just said, the person data belongs to the person. Organizational data belongs to the administrator, and the people management data belongs to the line managers and HR professionals. Not like most HR systems at the moment, where everything belongs to the HR director or to the HR manager. That's it.
I don't know. What it basically does is it gives a certain kind of a property right to your data. It kind of assigns a kind of a property right to my personal data, so that I would know that this belongs to me. That could be proprietary data, which belongs to the organization, and depends on whether they would want to share that data with the other nodes who are connected onto the blockchain. So they can decide whether they want to introduce that information into the blockchain, and in what situations that they want to introduce that, what purpose would kind of dictate them to kind of do that. For example, it could be employee references, it could be the appraisals that like what we discussed, so that they know that this employee is of good, has these kind of strengths and weaknesses and so on.
And whenever something is edited, whenever something is edited, you know that it's getting edited. As it currently stands, I would hazard a guess to say that anyone who's full-time employed by an employer and it's got like a 9-to-5, if you go up to anyone, you say, "Do you know what your personnel file looks like?" They would probably be telling you, "No, I actually don't." But in a blockchain environment, you know exactly what your remuneration, your tax responsibility, the amount of training that you've done, the training that you still have to do based on your career trajectory, your performance, etc. And that just creates so much more transparency. People are able to talk and to say, "Listen, I do this amount of work, I get this amount of pay. Maybe there's something wrong because you do the same amount of work, you have the same qualifications, and you don't get the same pay as I do." Things like that. Some increased transparency, better ownership, better agency. People have the tools, if they have access in real time to this information, they have better agency over their own organizational life because they've got the information at their fingertips and they're the owners.
I think it also kind of creates data visibility as well, because as you rightfully point out, it creates an updated copy of yourself in the eyes of everyone, because whether it may be your current employer or your previous employer, or the employer from 5 years ago, they would have an updated version of yourself with them within the blockchain, because every time the record gets updated, it updates all the nodes that are connected onto the blockchain, and it ensures that there's data accuracy, and the data is the currency of the data, because the data is made to be current by the platform.
Yes, because and so that also eliminates situations where you are now subject to a specific organization's manager releasing data or the quality of the data because it goes inter-organization. If you have a blockchain HR environment that everyone subscribes to, if you're an HR professional or whatever the blockchain is, maybe it's not even HR specific, maybe it's just business based or industry based. As you said, everything gets updated, and it's fully transparent.
Yeah, I'm now talking from an apprenticeship point of view, because one of my kind of engagement in the current role is to look after the apprenticeship program, and I know how one of the things that is highlighted in the apprenticeships kind of arena is that this building of knowledge, skills, and behaviors, because you need to kind of demonstrate that you are building those skills, building those knowledge, and building those behaviors for a particular job role. So the future of the CV, I think CV is going to be an obsolete document, because right now what we do is we get our kind of learners to maintain these knowledge, skills, and behaviors in a portfolio, so that they update whatever the work that they're doing updates this portfolio. So when they complete their kind of apprenticeship or the degree apprenticeship that they do with us, they carry a portfolio of kind of evidence to show that, okay, I've basically done this, I have demonstrated these skills. So for a recruiter who is potentially looking out for a candidate, would be able to kind of see a pool of learners with their portfolios and be able to find a good match for the organization. So I think in the future, we are not going to have, we won't have the burden of maintaining a CV, because, right now it's quite a laborsome task to maintain a CV and update it and keep on updating every minor detail that we go through.
And also,
whether it may be completing online training and so on.
And CVs are still, even if you're very honest, CVs are still very subjective and subject to verification. Whereas if you have a blockchain technology, it kind of, not just the CV, it will revolutionize the recruitment process overall, because there's going to be less, I think, admin, less verification, less testing, because you don't really have to test something that's already been tested. If the blockchain is sophisticated enough to contain data that is objectively predetermined, because that's essentially what things like a degree is supposed to signal, right? So I've got a degree, so I have a certain level of expertise. But now you've got so many different universities and different quality of education, and different people have different access. And so my degree and your degree is not necessarily signaling the same thing. But if we have a blockchain environment and we're recruiting within a blockchain environment, I'm just thinking that's completely going to change the game. I'm just thinking in terms of equality and diversity.
It is, because you start to see like things like digital badges. Like you see that on platforms like LinkedIn. Once you complete a qualification, you get these digital badges that gets placed in your LinkedIn profile. So most of these certification programs, whether you do a certification with PMI, Project Management Institution, or whether you do a HR certification, or whether you get a kind of accreditation from your professional body, it will be presented in a digital kind of the
only difference is
that can be connected to your platform.
Yeah, the only difference is though, if I do the whatever badge on LinkedIn, someone at LinkedIn, if I have a buddy at LinkedIn, LinkedIn can still edit that information. If I get a qualification from a professional body, someone at the professional body can still either make a mistake or, be corrupt or be bought out or anything like that, and it can be edited. If that is happening in a blockchain environment, it's there for everyone to see, and it cannot be changed. And if it is changed, there is a document trail, a paper trail of the change happening.
Exactly, because it's not just changing, creating a fraudulent record. It's about creating a history of fraudulent transactions, and then the beauty of the blockchain architecture is such that any new kind of manipulation gets picked up instantly. So no one would be able to create that kind of a record without the other nodes finding out that this is a fraudulent kind of activity.
Imagine the application within recruitment and selection, promotion, things like this. When we talk about white men, people from wealthy backgrounds, still, I do work in leadership, still have the majority of leadership and decision-making roles. And you hear all kinds of things about nepotism, and it doesn't even start in the organization. It starts when the person goes to university. They don't really deserve university place in a spot in a prestigious university, but their parents are wealthy, so they, get a spot in the university. They don't pass with a distinction or anything like that, but they get the job because their uncle is someone at the. If you're doing recruitment within a blockchain environment, something like that would not be possible because you cannot be nepotistic. Is that a word? You can't. Nepotism cannot happen in blockchain without it being evident. So,
I think it's more about nepotism being evident than it being visible across the network. Okay. Because right now anyone can be appointed unless it gets published and widely kind of visibility is kind of reached from that publication. But if posts are published to kind of say, okay, this is the individual who has been identified, this is the credentials of that individual, then that organization would be scrutinized to say, why was the case? Because this particular, the similar kind of grades are basically handled by these kind of caliber of an individual, whereas you have been appointing this sort of an individual. So it's more on a reputational image level, it's more about the organization's image and the reputation damage.
So it wouldn't
highlighted,
so
because
like
of the
nepotism,
visibility of that information.
Yeah, so nepotism and unfair advantages wouldn't necessarily be eliminated, but it would definitely be more visible. It would be less easy. It would be much harder
because
to hide it.
You have a clear paper trail. Yeah, you're creating a better paper trail as to why a certain person was basically promoted over another person. What were their credentials? What are their skills? What have they done? And how many hours have they worked? Were they just sitting back and relaxing? So there's more information that's made available for decision makers to go by and decide and create their prejudice.
And I'm just thinking now, something like I'm working on another project on burnout, and the conversation around burnout is dominated by people, by the assumption that burnout is the individual's responsibility. If I burn out, it is because of my poor decision making that I've burnt out. Very, very seldom is burnout discussed as a systemic issue or a structural issue. And again, within a blockchain environment, when HR information is more visible, like how many hours do certain people work, in which divisions do people work long hours, are people logging in after hours, especially working remotely, are people working over the weekend, are people taking leave, in blocks, or just ad hoc days here and there. And with that, you get a lot better. Well, I'm hypothesizing, but I would argue that you would get a lot better visibility on the role that organizations and structures and even industries have to play on things like individuals' well-being, looking at typical things like stress and burnout, things like that, where it's usually discussed as an individual issue, but it's very much a structural issue.
No, I think it definitely does kind of, because you can actually compare a person at this organization with another person, and then you can actually see what caused that burnout. Is it because of the workload? Is it because of the stress? Is it because of the hours that they've been putting in? Is it because of the resources
because of their manager
that they've been allocated? So I think it gives in more information because of the manager, and if they can clearly find out the root causes for burnout and so on.
Yeah, so as I'm talking through this with you, I'm just actually amazed I'm so excited at the idea of the HR profession adopting. I don't see a downside. I honestly don't see a downside. We already, with the absolute shit show that's recently happened with Facebook privacy issues. What was the name of the organization with the data leak?
Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica. So Cambridge Analytica. What was the other big one that there was a data breach? Anyway, we know already about the importance of data security. So I think the majority of pushback is probably going to be on that because, it is new and we need to trust. But I would rather trust a computer that has no personal agenda than I trust a person or an organization.
I think that the issue would be the platform owner would have more control over the data, and it's scary for that platform owner to have multiple visibility. I wouldn't want a big player who has all different facets of my data for my life.
But that's currently the case.
Exactly.
Facebook,
and that's
Facebook,
why
Google. But that's not the case. But that's not the case with blockchain. Blockchain isn't owned by someone or an organization. Blockchain is just code. It's just code.
Yeah.
So
I think blockchains. It's a question of advocating blockchains against platforms because the platforms are going to be driving this conversation away from blockchains because they wouldn't want to stop commercializing that data because right now data holds a value much greater than crude oil. So the commodity data is acknowledged as a commodity.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but blockchain retains the value of data, but it completely removes the commodification of that data. So it's still valuable in enabling me to make decisions and to be transparent, but no one can sell it because it's there.
Because the ownership, no one owns the data.
Exactly. So it
because
can't be
no one
sold.
owns the data. That's the beauty of it.
Oh my!
And I, as the data subject, I have more right.
I'm gonna get T-shirts made that says HR for blockchain or bust, because I haven't really thought about it this much up until this point. But I'm just thinking now. But big tech must be shitting themselves because they know all these things that my dumbass just literally learned in the last half an hour.
They know it. It's just that who's going to be funding this? Who's going to be the it's again the same question. We can come up with solutions for privacy, personal privacy, but then who's gonna basically do it? Why would they want to do it? What's the purpose of them doing it? There's a purpose for why the blockchain exists for Bitcoin, because the person who came up with. I think it should be a crowd-sourced kind of a solution,
or governmental
for profit. These. Then there's the big brother effect of surveillance. So you don't want a paternalistic entity having all that information about your life. So.
No, but again, blockchain does it. Even if the government funds it, if it's truly true to the ethos of blockchain, and I say this with knowing full well that I'm not an expert on the matter, but even if a big government does fund the development of blockchain solutions, they still don't own it.
Why would they do it though? Yeah, why would they do it? Why would they fund it? What's the benefit that they're getting?
Because that's the point. That's supposed to be the point of government. They serve the people. What's the point? To serve the people. I know we've become very jaded in recent years with corruption and politicians and being in bed with big corporates, but essentially that's the job of government. is to serve their people.
But then the governments will always be lobbied by these big tech. Big tech will always be like, hang on, we are running the economy, we are paying the taxes. Do you want to cut those taxes? I'm yet to hear someone taking the initiative and taking this forward for the greater good.
Let me just refer quickly back to this little tab here that says, 13 years of academic experience in higher education, the field of expertise ranging from computer science to law. So if anyone was going to be taking the initiative, Dr. Eran Padumadasa, I can't believe that I've known you so many years, and I still cannot say your surname.
That's close enough. Close enough.
It is a hard sound for my white mouth to make, Eran. So listen, let's wrap this shindig up. What can we do to advocate us mere mortals? I mean, I joke, saying that you are the ideal person to advocate for this and to take the initiative on stuff like this. But I mean, we're just two super successful, brilliantly genius men. But we're still just men, What can we do to further this cause on the benefits, the societal benefits of blockchain in the space of HR?
I think it's regulations that can drive this agenda forward. I think people's voice, people always have a voice. I think if people raise their voice to kind of say, we have a right to our information and there is a need for this to be maintained in a way that benefits us. And that agenda is what's going to get us to that level of using blockchains and utilizing the full potential of our own data, because there's so much of data about us on the cloud that we might know and that we might not know. Unless people don't voice their kind of concern about privacy, about personal data right, we won't be able to take this initiative forward, because people need to know that they have the voice to make change.
What I'm hearing is telling people to wake up and choose violence, because I'm down.
No. Right now, what we see is, it takes such a long time for legislation to change. By the time legislation changes, technology has changed 10 times. So
and then we're behind again, and we need more change.
Unless the platform, exactly, we basically it's a vicious cycle. So unless the platform owners are held accountable, unless we define a privacy or a property right for your personal data, this issue is not going to be solved. Property right, data, personal data need to have a property right. Because right now we have a property right to our land, our equipment, but we don't have a property right to our
Must be nice
data.
to have land and equipment.
Until the point we get that.
The equipment that I own, you can literally see in this video.
until we find a solution to this. It's always going to be conceptual. And let's hope for a better future, which is not dystopic.
Well, you better pray. Because dystopic? Is that dystopian? Dystopian, I think it's dystopian. Although, let a whole white man not control your brown body to tell you how to speak and how not to speak. You can say desk topic if you want to. I can't say your surname, so. Dr. Padumadasa, I'm not going to lie. This episode started out really rough. In between me bouncing off the walls and the people below you bouncing up and down on the floor and the London Underground seemingly being dead set on ruining my day, I still think this is a really good conversation. I learned a lot just from this conversation. I didn't come into the episode with a lot of preparation because I am lazy. But yeah, it was great for me. I hope it was great for you. Thank you for discussing this very interesting new topic with me.
It was very intellectually stimulating. So,
I mean, hello, it's me, Oppie. So if my one viewer wants to cyberstalk you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Google Scholar, or they can find me on. They can find me online.
Right. When you say they can find me on LinkedIn, I just wanted to tell you that I know that you're a big shot at the Faculty of Engineering, but my one viewer is still going to need a little bit more information about where to find you on LinkedIn.
What do you mean, where to find me on LinkedIn?
Like, what is your
name?
What is your handle? And all of this is just Eran Padumadasa.
Yes, I'm the only Eran Padumadasa.
And your Twitter handle, or none of those things, just LinkedIn.
I don't have a Twitter handle. I don't have a Twitter handle yet because I'm not much of a tweety person. But
yeah, I can ask for your life story.
On LinkedIn, and I'm quite active on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'm just being facetious. I will link all your deets in the description. Thank you very much for joining me. So, Eran, you can find on LinkedIn. Me, you can find on all platforms at Clif with one F P Lewis. Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, everything. Bye.
Peace out. Bye.